Marvel Rivals has been one of the most fun games I played in 2024, and that's only with 2 limited beta sessions. You guys seem to really like the previous Marvel Rivals videos, and with the release literally hours away at this point, I wanted to break down some of the new characters coming out. So without wasting any more time, my name is Mando Saint, and this is my breakdown for the newly announced Marvel Rivals characters. Starting off the list, we have Captain America, aka Steve Rogers. Cap's normal attack or left click Sentinel Strike is an up close strike that if you land a second hit, it enables a shield throw that can ricochet up to 4 different times. Getting into his abilities now, Shift, Leading Dash, a speed boost that leaps him into the air. For his E ability, you have Vibranium Energy Saw, a shield throw that strikes enemy in its path. His F is Liberty Rush, raise a shield and charge forward. Left click is Super Soldier Slam, a slam down from the sky that launches enemies in the air. And his right click is Living Legend, raise a shield to deflect incoming projectiles, ricocheting projectiles in other directions. For Cap's Q ability or Ultimate Freedom Charge, holding his shield up high, Cap rushes a path forward, giving his teammates and himself a boost in health and movement. This also can be combined with Living Legend or Leading Dash to launch enemies up in the air. Up next, we have Hawkeye. For Hawkeye's left click or normal attack, he's going to have 2 different variations. He has a piercing regular arrow that can be charged, and also a blast arrow that you only have 3 shots of but can also be charged. Getting into his abilities, for his shift, he has Crescent Slash. You unsheath the katana and slash forward that launches up enemies when hit. For his E ability, Hypersonic Arrow, he shoots a hypersonic arrow that deals 2 instances of damage to enemies in its path and inflicts them with a slow status. This can also knock down flying heroes. Similar to his shift attack, Ronin Slash is a sword swinging ability that strikes frontal enemies and deflects all incoming projectiles. For his jump ability or space ability, he performs a double jump in any direction of movement. Hawkeye also has a passive Archer's Focus that aims at enemies to improve his focus, enhancing the damage inflicted by his piercing arrow. And finally, for his ultimate, he has Hunter Sight, and after image of enemies pops up on the screen, allowing you to deal damage to the after image and is transferred over to the corresponding enemy. Up next, we have Psylocke. For her normal attack or left click, Psionic Crossbow, Psylocke shoots psionic bolts that damage enemies and reduce her cooldowns for all of her abilities. Getting into her abilities, first up we have her shift, her side blade dash. It's a dash forward that slices through enemies that are all along the path. Her E ability is Psychic Stealth, a stealth mode that gains Psylocke with a movement boost. Her right click is Wing Shurikens, a volley of shurikens that stick to enemies that deal damage and grant her a health bonus. And finally, her ultimate or Q, Dance of the Butterfly, slashes nearby enemies with a katana, dealing massive damage. Next up is Moon Knight, and forgive me ahead of time if I mispronounce any of these abilities. For his normal attack, we have Crescent Dart. Crescent darts that can be bounced between enemies and onks, dealing damage to enemies. Getting into his abilities, we have Shift. Night Glider is literally just a cape glide. His E ability is Ancient Ankh. Fire an Ankh to launch enemies within its radius towards the center. For his F ability, we have Moonlight Hook. Launches a grappling hook that pulls Moon Knight towards it. His space or jump ability is Rising Leap. It's just a regular double jump. His right click is Moonblade. It launches forward a Moonblade that can bounce between enemies and onks, dealing damage. His V ability or Triple Eclipse, a combo with his Truncheon, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, with the 3rd strike allowing you to launch up enemies slightly. Finally, his Q or ultimate, Hand of Khonshu, opens up a portal that allows Khonshu to bombard enemies with his talons. Now we have Winter Soldier, aka Bucky Barnes. His left click or main ability is Rodenstern, a gun that shoots explosive rounds damaging the target hit and enemies behind him. His shift ability, Trooper Fist, a dash forward which seizes enemies in its path and launches enemies at the end of the dash. His E ability, Tainted Voltage, a charge up and electrical punch dealing an AoE damage and slow effect. It also knocks down flying enemies. His right click, Bionic Hook, charge up and launch a hook that reels in the first target hit and enemies lurking behind him. Bucky also has a passive, Ceaseless Charge. Rodenstern reloads automatically with his bionic arm in action and also grants a health boost. Finally, his Q or ultimate, Kraken Impact, a high leap followed by a dash forward and slam with his bionic arm. Enemies in range get marked, and marked enemies will die instantly if their health falls below a certain threshold. This recharges the bionic arm for another Kraken Impact within a short period of time. For the next 5 characters, we don't have all their abilities laid out on the website like the other ones I just covered, but we're going to do more so guessing from what we saw in the videos. I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible, so starting up first, we have Squirrel Girl. Her primary looks like a slingshot where she can ricochet acorns that she fires. Her right click launches a giant acorn at enemies that freezes the enemies in place by the squirrels holding it down. If you want to call it rooted. Her E cancels the cooldown for one of her abilities, allowing her to use an ability back to back with no cooldown. Her shift is just a simple air bounce where she uses her tail to spring up in the air. Her Q or ultimate ability is a wave of squirrels that do damage to enemies in its path, but also bounces off walls or ricochets like her primary. And by the way, this has an insane health. It's said to be around 600, so it's not really killable. Next up, we have Black Widow. Her primary fire is a rifle that seems to kill on headshots and can be used as a scoped in sniper or hip fire for more of a shotgun feel. Her E is a kick that knocks enemies back when hit. It also has a follow up with grapple that brings enemies right back. Her shift is just a limited time sprint for movement and also gives her 1 super jump. Kind of like Hawkeye, she has a secondary left click. That's her electrical batons that give her more of a close range melee attack. And finally, her Q or ultimate ability is a first person shot that launches a big AoE field that slows down enemies by a lot. Probably the most anticipated character on this list, we have Wolverine. Wolverine's left click, surprise surprise, is his classic adamantium claws that are a fury of swipes. He also has a right click that looks like a damage boosted dash forward that swipes 3 times at the end of the dash. His passive seems like dealing damage to enemies and increases this meter that he has that when full gives him a single more boosted swipe forward. His shift ability looks like a lunge forward that grabs enemies and takes it with him. It also seems like this gives him a boost in his primary fire, changing it to an even more boosted fury of slashes seen by the red. His E ability seems like an ability where he can just tank any damage from incoming abilities and ultimates. And finally, his Q or ultimate knocks enemies into the air that are in range and dashes forward, catching an enemy in the way, topped by a slam AoE effect dealing massive damage. With only 2 characters left, the next character is personally my favorite character on this list. Rounding out our video, we have Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger is unique because you will be able to freely swap between the 2 characters, and they also have their own unique movesets. Starting off with Dagger, her primary is homing shots that do damage to enemies and or heal teammates. Her right click throws a cluster of daggers that heal teammates over time. Her E ability is a throwable healing wall that grants increased healing to allies. And her shift ability is just swap to Cloak. Moving over to Cloak, his primary fire is a constant damage drain with infinite ammo. His right click shrouds his allies, giving them temporary vulnerability, also allowing Cloak to fly. Cloak's E ability is similar to Dagger, a throwable wall, but this time doing damage to enemies and also blinding enemies, and seems to give them some type of status effect. Cloak's ultimate or Q combines the 2 to create a triple dash move that creates a shroud of darkness on the ground that heals teammates and or damages enemies within the area. And finally, the last character announced for release is Iron Fist. Iron Fist has 2 passive abilities, his first being wall run and his second being health on kills. Iron Fist probably has the best jump ability, with it being a quadruple, yeah that's right, quadruple jump. Iron Fist's primary is a flurry of kicks and punches meant to overwhelm enemies, obviously a very up close move. His right click is a shield stance that blocks enemies incoming damage with sound cues to let you know when you're getting the blocks. It's followed up by an even more overwhelming set of punches to punish the enemy. His shift ability is a sweeping kick that knocks enemies back a pretty good distance. His E puts him in a meditative state that allows him to regain all his health, including the health gained by kills, although he does kind of look vulnerable in this state. And finally, his Q or ultimate is a boost to his primary's attack, increasing the damage and range while also bringing down the cooldown for blocks down to 3 seconds. And that's all the new characters added to Marvel Rivals. The game will be launching with 33 characters December 5th at 7 p.m. If you're playing on Steam, make sure to preload to get instant access. I know I didn't cover team-ups because we don't know all of them currently, so I'll leave that up to you guys on release to find out. Make sure to sub and like for more Marvel Rivals content, and I will catch you guys out there and see you on the next one.